Welcome everybody to the Toku Portal podcast. It's me, Zero, here with...
Dedicated.
Right. Welcome to the podcast for Kamen Rider Build, episode 8. So, quick recap of last week. Sento and Banjo met up with Katsuragi's mother, Kyoka, in Hokuto. For those of you that might not remember, Japan has basically been split into 3 sections. Toto, where the main story is taking place, Seito, and Hokuto. And they had to sneak past the border because Banjo is a wanted man. And technically Sento is as well, but only his Kamen Rider aspect. She hides them from law enforcement when they caught wind of them, and then takes them in and tells them about her son. Apparently Katsuragi was inspired to become a scientist by his father, who was a scientist. And it was his father who was in charge of Pandora's box. They were there at the Skywall incident, at the award ceremony for the astronaut. Unfortunately, because Skywall happened, his father received a lot of horrible bashing, and that led him to kill himself. Katsuragi continued as a scientist to clear his father's regrets. When Banjo gets hungry, Kyoka makes them tamagoyaki, which was Katsuragi's favorite. Banjo says it's too sweet, but Sento tears up after one bite from how good it is. This kind of supports the theory we're having that Sento might actually be Katsuragi, like his mind in a different body. Kyoka reveals that Katsuragi did visit her a week before his death and left her a flash drive of his research data in case anything happened to him to give to someone she can trust. She left it in Toto when she moved. That also supports the theory. A week before his death is a little suspicious. He knew he was going to die and needed to tell her, hey, give this to someone you can trust. The only part that can't be accounted for is why he left it with his mother in the first place.
Yeah, it definitely is interesting that they're building up this character as more than just this mad scientist that, you can see with the way he interacts with his mom, he's not totally crazy, so maybe that story about him being the one who wanted to experiment on people might not be true, or maybe it is true, but Faust kind of, I don't know. We'll see, but it is interesting that they're giving him multiple layers instead of just being this bad guy.
Zero?
Yeah, I've got nothing. You guys covered most of it.
Alright. Meanwhile, the 3 leaders are having a meeting. Taiji Miyoshiko, the Prime Minister of Hokuto, Mido Masakune, the Prime Minister of Seito, and Taizen Himuro, the Prime Minister of Toto. Tajimi accuses Taizen of intentionally releasing a smash in Hokuto to cause chaos, and Mido questions if Taizen is militarizing them. Taizen denies the allegations, and his son Gentoku cuts off the call. Gentoku is sure that the others want to take over Toto, having been influenced by Skywall's light, which Taizen was not there for, but Gentoku was. Taizen has no interest in building an army, however. He wants to build up society. So he pretty much has no idea of everything that's going on with his son and Faust.
Yeah, I guess that is going to be pretty interesting confrontation in the future. And I wonder if the old man's going to end up helping Build and the others. We'll see.
Yeah. There's not much to say beyond what's surface level right now because there's no change. It's basically okay, the other 2 are questionable. Hooked. I guess what region is the main one set in? Hooked.
Toto. Toto.
Yeah. Okay, Toto. Yeah. That prime minister seems like a good guy, but he looks like a good guy. There's no guarantee that he's super nice. So I don't know, man. It's interesting that we're adding this political stuff, but it's all just the same. So we're just repeating. It's not bad because they actually have actors who can act. but like it's like it could go anyway. Like it could go nowhere. It could actually become interesting. Like it's still too early to actually fully know what the hell they're doing. This political stuff.
I think they're just kind of building it up right now. Kyoka sneaks Sento and Banjo past the border by hiding them in the trunk of her car. But they don't get particularly far before Bloodstark shows up and kidnaps her, and is gone by the time the others break out of the trunk and deal with the Guardians. Kyoko wakes up at Faust, where Gentoku asks her where the research data is, and offers her son's final letter in exchange. She gives him the key to her safety deposit box, but when she gets the letter, it's blank. Gentoku then gives the command to have her exposed to the nebula gas so that she'll forget everything that just happened. So we have villains that are kind of like actually on their feet and thinking here. They're actively like doing things that will like screw over the heroes and such. It's a little different than what we normally get in a Rider series. I kind of like it.
Yeah, Gentoku is certainly an evil bastard. And a clever one at that. That whole scene was just really pretty intense. I mean, like, it's funny at first with them being in the trunk stuck together, and then shit gets real. So yeah, I thought that was pretty good writing.
Zero?
Yeah. Sorry, I was just checking if the stream was running. Yeah, it's that was actually like most. I think that's probably like the best. Nah, true. Like this whole episode's really good or decent. So like the acting's good. The only thing I had to add is like, okay, so like he henshins into Build and like busts through the trunk. Okay, it's like an older car, so it doesn't have one of those like inside trunk release things. I can let that go. But I'm like, wouldn't all like the pipes and stuff expand when he's like henshining? Like, shouldn't Banjo be like surrounded by that stuff too? Whatever.
Who knows? Who knows how much of a degree they are actually real too. At the cafe, they get a report of a smash sighting. Sento figures that it's probably Kyoka. We have a Kamen Rider that can actually think for once. And Mizuru gives him a new full bottle for fire engine she just purified. At the site, Sento inserts his pirate bottle with the new fire engine one, but is disappointed it isn't a best match. I can see what he was thinking here. Pirates are water-themed, so maybe go with a bit of an opposites thing. Because that's what he has going on with Rabbit and Tank, speed versus slowness. He swaps the pirate bottle for his hedgehog one, and that's the best match. And then he makes short work of the smash, and of course it's Kyoka. Are we already getting into like reused costumes here? This is literally episode 8.
Well, to be fair, X8 had those generic robot things that had the gashettes in them, so oh well.
I was hoping this wouldn't be another X8 situation where we have like 5 monster costumes for the entire series.
Yeah, I'll admit that was a bit disappointing. I do like the best match though. The CG wasn't super amazing, but it was at least used in a kind of creative way, so I'll let it slide.
Yeah, it kind of sucks that we started reusing monsters. I mean, like, maybe it's just one because it's a 2-parter or whatever. Or maybe it's just, like, the generic one. But I wish they would give them new suits. But, like, at this point, they're not doing anything. So, like, giving them more abilities doesn't help us. You know, like, because then, like, okay, then Build will just get more and more powers, which he won't have time to use. And, like, the other thing is, like, the Smash don't do anything. Like, they, like, are dangerous, but like they don't have a personality to themselves, so like it's irrelevant. Like there's no point making them unique. Yeah, I know, it kind of sucks though that they're reusing the suits this early. I mean, at least in X8 the like you know, like Salty and like all those guys like reappearing, they had a personality. Like these guys have nothing.
Yeah, that's the biggest disappointment about the monsters this season. There's nothing to them. They just exist to drive the plot forward. I stand by what I said before. So the main writer is writing a drama series, but he's also getting paid to advertise toys. At the bank inside the safety deposit box is a paper that reads, "I couldn't trust you." And Gentoku actually applauds Kyoka for her deception. That was actually kind of clever. I was worried that she was actually giving him like the location. He then gets a call from Bloodstark. We cut to an abandoned university where Katsuragi had graduated. Sento and Banjo dig up the flash drive from its real hiding spot. Bloodstark followed them there, steals the flash drive, and then Gintoku shows up and secretly transforms into Night Rogue before joining in the fight. We get a decent fight scene here. This was a pretty good one, especially for this series. Stark is actually impressed at how strong Banjo is becoming, so he rewards him by giving back the flash drive. Night Rogue is super confused, but Sento takes the opening to grab Banjo and rocket away. Stark then explains to Rogue that they're just going to let them figure out the data for them. Actually, pretty clever. Sento's a genius, and Banjo's a test subject.
Yeah, it definitely was pretty crafty. Yeah, I did enjoy the fight. It's a lot more Rider-ish. Yeah, nothing much to say, but it is interesting that Bloodstark is kind of like, why would he want his enemies to get stronger? Interesting. And we might get an explanation next episode.
I mean, maybe there's something like they're hoping they get strong enough to beat whatever the hell is keeping up the wall. You know, maybe it's like another Gaim situation where like they know there's something in the forest that they had to beat. You know, like maybe they know there's something in the wall they had to fight. There's that option, or the other option is it's the Bloodstark is the cafe owner, in which case he's just BSing both sides and just like letting Build do his thing and, you know, like just feeding lies to Gintoku so he'd let him do whatever he wanted. Also, like Bloodstark's like sword thing, Night Rogue was using that this episode. I'm like, oh, I thought that was like your weapon, dude. But I guess it's just a gadget that they built, so that's interesting.
I'm all for the idea that Bloodstark is actually Soichi, and he's just like playing his own game here. In fact, I think that would be a more satisfying explanation than if Bloodstark is just no one. Back with Kyoka, she explains that she doesn't remember anything about being kidnapped, but must have done as Katsuragi told her. Turns out, he was the one who came up with the fake-out idea back when he gave her the flash drive. Again, kind of suspicious. Like, he knew, like, hey, if Foss tries to go after her, I should stop that. Sento shows her a real last message from her son that he deciphered from some of his notes, and that just makes her really happy. Down in the lab, Sento inserts the flash drive into his computer and is greeted with a file labeled Project Build. This is literally screaming, Sento is Katsuragi. I don't know how they could be making it any more blunt. That's the end of the episode, by the way. At this point, I would be disappointed if that isn't like the big reveal.
Yeah, that would definitely be pulling the rug out from under us. It's interesting, though, as to what Katsuragi was planning with the Build project. I mean, we've seen two completely different sides of him, and it's kind of curious as to which one was dominant in terms of making the Kamen Rider. I guess we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, especially considering, like, if the cafe owner is Bloodstark, like, how he is like, okay, you should go do this Build thing, because, you know, he knows he has, like, Katsuragi's memories or whatever. So, like, that would be interesting. Plus, I think the whole, like, Build project is, like, setting up for, like, just a reference to the original Rider, like, how, like, Rider 2 was built to take out Rider 1, so inherently he was stronger. It's just Rider 1 has better, like, fighting technique. So the thing is, like, you know, I mean, this is all leading up to, you know, Ryuga henshining, but, like, it's doing a pretty good job. Plus, it's a good callback to the original, or if that's how it plays out anyway.
Yeah, we're getting much closer to Banjo becoming the secondary rider. Rogue and Star clearly want to militarize the rider system. I'm wondering what they actually plan to do with that, besides giving themselves some upgrades. Like if they're actually going to start spreading it a la Gaim.
I think they're probably gonna like try to take over the other sections because the thing is like we went to like Hokuto, the one in the north, and they're like super heavily military. So like they can't just like walk out there without like having a strong military force. Like the robots are good, but like like anybody can hack the robot, right? So maybe that's why they want like a stronger system. I don't know. I mean, like,
I'm
I
sure
don't
that
think
like
we're gonna get.
I'm sure that
Yeah,
like
go
we're
ahead.
building up to a war here. I'm just wondering like how they plan on going about it. Like if they're actually going to build up an army of just like random people or
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting. Like, I don't see them doing like a whole like double situation where they start just handing it out because like that doesn't do anything for them. Like they're already abducting people and conducting experiments. Like they don't need to like hand it out to anyone, right? Like they keep finding test subjects because they keep abducting people. So like actually handing it out like that would just like weaken their state. That being said, they're probably the most peaceful state in all out of all three. So like, how are they gonna get the military? Yeah, unless they're kind of doing like a South Korea thing where it's like, no, like it's like mandatory, or like South Korean or Israel thing where it's like, no, military service is mandatory. So like maybe the population is trained. Like it doesn't look like it, but it could be. I don't know. It's weird.
I could see.
Unless they're gonna try. Yeah, go ahead.
On.
I was gonna say unless they're gonna try to sell it to the southern section, and like both of them are gonna team up to take out the northern section, like form an alliance. Maybe that's why they're trying to militarize it. But I don't know.
I could see Gentoku like overthrowing his father, becoming the new prime minister, and enforcing like militaristic laws in training.
Yeah, I could see that happening. The point is like it would take too long. Because like I don't see Gentoku as the guy who's gonna sit there and like do like 30 years from now we'll take over all of Japan. Like I don't see.
No, assuredly he's going to rush the project. I just see him like putting himself in more of a position of power to do it.
Yeah, I mean the more interesting thing is like I wonder how in continuity Kamen Rider Final is gonna be because like apparently the build world is like an else world like decade style. So like. Or like Q Ranger, it's like its own continuity and then they like merge with the main continuity or just like interact with them. Like maybe okay, that movie's gonna happen like what, like that's a winter movie, right?
I don't know.
Or maybe it's a spring movie.
I was actually shocked to see like how early they were advertising it.
Yeah, I mean like when was Heisei Generations?
Heisei Generations was the official like X8 and Ghost crossover movie.
Yeah, I mean, Heisei Generations Final is like X8 and Build's official, I think. So I think it's gonna be early, but that would mean like Night Rogue's gonna either take over and like force this war to start, and then the riders show up. Like that would be a good point for them to show up, or he's gonna make his move real late in the game, which is gonna be weird because then it'd be kind of a waste of this whole like 3-state thing. I don't know. Maybe they're gonna try to be like old school Shocker and be like real old school Shocker, not like generic Shocker of we want to take over the world and we don't care who gets in our way and we'll do it in the open. I mean like early Shocker where they were like slowly creeping into like countries and taking them over and stuff. Like maybe they'll try like I don't know. It's maybe they're just trying to power up their agents so Faust can expand because it seems like they're only in the center section. Oh no, I guess they're in the southern part too because they have that like building under surveillance.
Influence in the other areas, but they mostly only operate in Toto because that's where all their stuff is. One of the prime ministers actively says like, yeah, those monsters only appear in Toto. You could easily militarize them if you wanted. Like, accusationally.
I also love that statement. I'm like, yeah, that's like saying, oh shit, bears only show up by the mountains. You should fucking train an army with them.
Why aren't we riding bears, though?
Right? Exactly. Like, yeah, like technically there would be an asset, but like to actually get that done would be so much work. Like, I wish it's one of those things where like one, it's a writer show, so you can't say something that insane. It's like, what? That's insane. Like the rest of your show is batshit insane anyway. And the other thing is like, because it's a Japanese show, people generally like don't respond right away. So that's why you see people like, oh, don't go, and they're like standing there in the hallway, like extending their arm, and the person just walks off. The other person, like, it's just how Japanese like cinema works. But I don't know, man. Like every once in a while, I just wish like people would just be like, you know what, fuck you, you're full of shit. You know, like, right? Like if this was like Tendo, he would have been like, screw you assholes. Or oh man, like definitely Faiz and Ryuki.
Faiz would have been so argumentative about it, like, yeah, and if I do, who's gonna fucking stop me? You?
I know, right? Like I love how in like Paradise Lost is like, oh, he's the savior. It's like, I don't like that name. It's like, you've been spreading rumors about me, and then like later on, like, you got all these people killed. You're pretty much the angel of death. Like, yeah, I like that name. I'm just call me that. Like, I'm like, yeah, Takemi would totally go with it. It'd be great. It's kind of one of the fun things. It's like, what if the other writers were in this position? Like, how would they act?
I like to think about that sometimes. How would other writers react in other situations?
Yeah, the problem is like most of the interesting reactions are like, shit, like maybe Agito, but definitely from Faiz to like Kabuto and Decade would have an interesting reaction. The most of the other guys are too nice, especially lately. We're getting like really nice main writers, so they wouldn't do anything different than Build, which is kind of boring. But like some of these other guys are great.
Deno would be great if like the Imagine just kept possessing him to get their own 2 cents in, just for like no reason.
Yeah. Decade, any thoughts?
I don't know what to, because basically in those trailers they're giving us like, I'm guessing like the middle of the movie, so I don't know. It's gonna be crazy. And if Build truly is from another timeline or universe, whatever, yeah, that'll be interesting too. We'll see.
I'm sure that like they'll try to play it off as like in continuity because they want to be. They've been trying to do that lately, but I'm sure it'll have like some sort of glaring flaw. Like, well, if this movie's in continuity, then it completely contradicts this aspect of the show, and we'll just have to like overlook it while rolling our eyes so hard they roll out of our heads.
Yeah. I think the audio is a little messed up, but whatever. Hopefully it fixes itself. It's mostly mine, so who cares? Anything else?
Final thoughts on the episode. This was a good episode. It was very emotional. It's just a shame we really didn't have much to say about it because everything was pretty clear cut. There wasn't really too much to look into here.
Yeah, I liked it a lot. They've really brought the fighting around. It's definitely nice to see more gritty fights. I definitely enjoyed the way that they're writing Katsuragi and kind of forcing the viewer to make their own kind of decisions about him. It's pretty interesting. So, good episode.
Yeah, it's another solid episode. I mean, the show's finally starting to feel like a writer show, like the last couple episodes, so it looks like it's finally got its stride, which is good.
Decade, do you have any last things to get in?
Only that no Sawa and no Soichi made me sad. But that's it.
Alright, with that, I think that's it for this podcast. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week on Tuesday when we talk about Key Ranger some more, or next Wednesday when we come back to Build.
Yep, thanks for listening.
See you guys next time.